Assalamu alaikum. In these slides, we will be talking about the design principles of intersections. Let us start with that. So, how do we define an intersection? It's an area which is shared by two or more roads. So, it's a common space which is shared by two or more roads, and the main function of providing an intersection is to provide the chance to the traveler to change its route, to change its direction. Now the complexity of the intersection can vary according to the angle at which the roads are intersecting to each other and the number of roads which are intersecting at the intersection. So for example, if you have an intersection like this, so it's a T intersection, only two roads crossing and they are crossing at 90 degree. So it's an easier intersection. But you have an intersection like this, so you can see the roads are not crossing at 90, so this makes it more complicated. And if I increase the number of roads which are crossing at this intersection like this, so with each direction or with each side added to the intersection, it increases the complexity of the intersection. Intersection can be classified into three main categories. We have grade separated without ramps, and we have grade separated with ramps, which are also known as interchanges, and we have at grade intersections. The term grade separated means that there are two highways which are intersecting each other at different levels. So one of them is at the ground level and the other one is either above it as a bridge or below it as a tunnel. So grade separated can be without ramps. That means the roads are intersecting but they are not connected. Grade separated can be with ramps. That means they are intersecting with each other and connected with ramps. And at grade intersection means that both roads are intersecting at the ground level. So when you are providing a grade separated intersection, you have to provide some vertical difference between the two roads, and that vertical difference requires construction of a separate structure. So you have one pavement which is on the road, on the ground, and you have to create another structure above that or below that to create the separation of grade. These are different examples of grade separated with ramps intersections, or what we called earlier as interchanges. So I managed to find examples, real examples for some of them from Bahrain as well, so I included them here. So these intersections can be further classified, these interchanges can be further classified according to the direction and provision of the ramps. Okay, so you, for example, you see the first one is called as trumpet because the shape of the interchange looks like a trumpet. It's a musical instrument that looks like this, and in this case you can see the ramp is only provided for this side, one particular side of the highway, and it's provided for left turn and uh, basically provided for left turns. Then you have a three-leg intersection. So you have one leg coming from here, the other one crossing like this. Okay, so one of the leg does not continue on the other side. Now in this case, ramps are provided on both sides for left turning. Then you have one quadrant interchange. That means all the ramps are provided within the same quadrant. Okay, so it's a four-leg interchange, but ramps are only on one quadrant. Then we have a diamond interchange. Okay, where the ramps are basically going diagonally in all four quadrants. Then we have a clover leaf interchange. Okay, so clover leaf interchange, the ramps are circular. Again, they are in all directions in all the four quadrants, but they are circular in shape. Then we have partial clover leaf. Okay, in which you have left turning ramps in basically two quadrants only, and we have this full clover leaf. Okay, so full clover leaf means you have ramps for left turn and right turn in all four quadrants. This one is a single point urban interchange, this one, which basically means that all ramps are meeting in the same area, this area. And we have all directional four leg interchange, in which all directions have one ramp for left turning and right turning, all of them. So the examples which I found in Bahrain, one of them for Elba roundabout, which is a trumpet. You can see the shape and you can match it with this one, trumpet. And this one is a three-leg interchange at Isa Town. So you have one road going like this and the other ones are crossing this. So it's something like a three-leg interchange. Then these are other examples which are not from Bahrain, they are from other countries, but they are relating to the interchanges which I just mentioned. Then we will talk more in detail about air grade intersections. Okay, they are our basic uh, topic here, the main topic of this chapter. So air grade intersections again can be further subclassified according to how many legs or how many sides it has. Okay, so we can have a three leg or T intersection, something like this. So it has three legs, so these sides are basically legs, we refer to them as legs. Then we can have a four leg intersection like this, or we can have a multi leg intersection, something like this. Or let me make it more clear. Something like this. Okay, so if there are two roads intersecting and they are having three legs, we call it three leg or T intersection. There are two roads crossing but having four legs, so each road has two legs, so we call it four leg intersection. And if there are more than two roads crossing, then it's a multi leg intersection. So these are different examples for T intersections. The first one is a plain T intersection, so you can see it's two roads crossing, three leg. The second one, uh, this one is T leg with a right turn lane, so you can see there's a separate lane given for right turning here. And then this one is for again T intersection with right hand passing lane. What do you mean by passing lane? You can see an extra lane here. This is for people who want to go straight. So somebody wants to make a left turn, so the guy who wants to go straight doesn't have to wait for him, he can get into this lane and continue without stopping. So we call this lane as a passing lane. Then we have T intersection with divisional islands and turning roadways. Okay, so these are called as islands. Okay, these are like small medians. So on each side you have islands dividing traffic from different directions, and you can see there are extra lanes provided for passing and turning as well. You can see there are extra lanes providing for right turning and passing. So this is with divisional islands and turning roadways. And this one is a Y intersection. Okay, so this one is slightly peculiar from other T intersections in the sense that you can see one road is going straight and the other one is basically diverging. Okay, so it's an intersection, but intersection is not completely at right angles. Okay, the angle of intersection is not at right angles. Then we have four leg intersections, you can see them here. Okay, again with different combinations of islands. So this is with provided with divisional islands here for right turning. This is provided with divisional island for separation of two directions, opposite direction traffic. And this is provided with median and divisional islands, and so this is a fully loaded intersection. And then we have this one which we call as a roundabout. Let's see the roundabout here. This one is a multi-leg intersection. I could not find a sketch in the book, so this one is from Karachi. I'm talking about this intersection. So you can see it has this road, then this one, then this is a small street which is coming here. This is there's another street which is coming from may not be very clear here, but there's another street which is coming from here as well. Okay, so it's like a six leg intersection. Now let us talk more in details about roundabout. So roundabouts are intersections, mainly four leg intersections or three leg intersections, which are provided with a central island. Like I said, it's a median like structure, so it's in the center and it's circular. Okay, and around the circle you can only go in one way. In our case, you can only go towards the right. When you are in the central island or around the central island, you can only go towards right. Now according to the size of the roundabout and the environment in which it is provided, the location in which it is provided, you can divide it into six categories. Okay, so we have mini roundabout: urban compact, urban single lane, urban double lane, rural single lane, and rural double lane. Okay, so you can see the location is mentioned here. It can be urban or rural, and the size is again mentioned: mini, compact, single lane, double lane. So obviously double lane will be bigger than single lane, and so on. This table provides uh, the design specifications for each type of roundabout. Okay, so we have mini roundabout, an urban compact for which the speed can be up to 25 kilometers per hour, but urban compact is bigger than mini roundabout. Okay, we are talking about the size of the circular island, okay, in the middle of the roundabout. So that island is bigger for compact. Both of them are provided when you have one lane coming to the roundabout. Okay, even urban single lane is also provided for one lane entering. Splitter island, it's an island you provide for dividing the traffic from different directions for roads which are coming towards a roundabout. Okay, so uh, these splitter island can be made in the form of a marking, or they can be in the form of an island, actual island with curbs. So if you provide island with curbs, you have to provide a cut for the pedestrians to cross. Okay, because on roundabouts usually you will have pedestrian crossings as well. So whenever you are providing an island for dividing the different directions of the road on the road, you have to provide a cut for pedestrian crossing as well, so they don't have to go up and down the island. So splitter island is very important for roundabouts because you will not see any roundabout which is without a splitter island. Okay, in all the types you will see there's a splitter island, because when you are coming out of the roundabout you need some division. Okay, you can come in the opposite direction as well by mistake. Okay, so just to give you a sense that you even when you are entering the roundabout, there's a chance that you may, you know, go into the other direction. So we need a splitter island to make sure the driver movement is directed towards the right hand side. Okay, and he knows what is his direction, and when he is exiting the roundabout he knows in which lanes he can exit. So splitter island is very important for roundabouts, mainly to divert the driver towards the correct path. Okay, so you can see the dimensions are changing as you go along this line. They are basically increasing. Okay, then number of lanes which can enter the roundabout. If it's a double lane roundabout, urban or rural, then you can have two lanes entering. Okay, I could not find any roundabout specifications for more than two lanes even in other books. So these three lanes roundabout are very unique for Bahrain. And then you see when the size increases, the velocity is also increasing, the design speed is increasing. Okay, and the volume is also increasing, so bigger roundabouts are for more volume. Now the maximum volume you see here is 20,000. So when the volume increases more than that, let's say it goes to 25,000 or so, then roundabouts will not be or are not considered feasible. Then you should switch to signals. So roundabouts are provided only up to a certain extent of volume, otherwise then you have to switch for signals. But in Bahrain, you would see there are roundabouts, especially these 3-lane roundabouts, which are provided for higher volumes as well. This is because of the importance to some other things, because they have a clock tower or something, a monument which they don't want to get rid of, so they want to keep the roundabout. But in terms of volume, it should be changed. So this particular slide basically shows you different aspects of a roundabout. So first of all, let me talk about Splitter Island. This is what we call as Splitter Island. Okay, so you can see some part of it is raised and some part of it is just marking. Okay, so again this will facilitate pedestrian crossing. Okay, this thing is what we call as a truck apron. Okay, it's a truck apron. What do we mean by that? A truck apron is basically supposed to provide extra space when the trucks are using the roundabout. So because they are making a circular motion, so they need extra space to make this turning. You can see if it was a bigger truck, then some part of it can go over this uh, apron as well. So although it is part of the central island of the roundabout, but it can be utilized by heavy trucks. So the advantage is you don't have to increase the width of the whole roundabout. You can keep the width of the roundabout as it is, but just provide this extra space or allow this extra space to be utilized by the trucks. Okay, the you can see this line from which you are exiting the roundabout, we call it exit radius, and this line from where you can enter the roundabout, or this line, we call it entry radius. Then this lane is known as a circulatory lane, so you can have one or more than one circulatory lanes. These lanes are known as entry lanes. Okay, and this is basically your stop line, okay, for the roundabout. So these are the things which are there for the roundabout. You can see a pedestrian cut here as well in the Splitter Island. So this is the cut I was talking about. Okay, so here you see this complete area is not raised, it's the ground level. But here you see before this crossing you have raised island, and after this crossing you have raised island. So you can see the cut here. So this is the cut which I was referring to for Splitter Islands. Okay, now let us look at some principles which you have to keep in mind when you are designing these intersections. The objective of designing the intersection is to minimize the severity of potential conflicts between traffic coming from different sides, maybe traffic of vehicles or traffic of pedestrians as well. We try to minimize it. Okay, try to minimize the conflict between vehicles coming from different sides or vehicles and pedestrians. So design your roundabout or design your intersection in such a way that when one vehicle is crossing, possibly no other vehicle should be conflicting with it at the same time, or no other pedestrian should be present in front of that vehicle. But at the same time you have to make sure that you have a smooth flow of traffic as well. So traffic should be moving smoothly in the same time, so there are no sudden breaks, there are no sharp turns, okay, as much as possible, no sharp gradients and so on. For doing that you have to incorporate the characteristics of the vehicles and pedestrians. For example, we have talked about pedestrian speeds earlier in chapter 3. So you have to know how much time the pedestrian requires to cross, okay, and how much time the pedestrian requires to wait, so you can design the size of the island according to that. Okay, so you must know some pedestrian characteristics and vehicle characteristics like their turning radius. So when you are providing turnings on the roundabout, you have to know how much turning radius is required by the vehicles, the design vehicle. Okay, normally it is we had two types of turning radius, one for low speed, one for high speed. Okay, so you have to incorporate both types of turning radius whenever you are providing at the turning at the intersection. So these are some of the examples of pedestrian and vehicle characteristics you must know in order to design the intersection. Then you have to make sure that you have enough width and enough side distance for the people who are approaching the intersection. Now you can see here in this figure on the right hand side, let's say I have an intersection here. Okay, now you can see from this point onwards I cannot see the intersection. Okay, so that means I do not have enough side distance. I am close to the intersection, and I cannot see what is happening at the intersection. Okay, so this must be avoided. Similarly, when you are providing turnings, so for turnings, I just showed you for roundabouts as well. uh, Bigger vehicles need more width, so like we were providing truck aprons so that trucks can move easily, you have to do something like that on intersections as well. Okay, so that when these trucks or any big vehicle is making a turn, they have enough width. So if you just design according to the width of the car, it will be smaller for the, it will not be sufficient for the trucks. Second thing which you have to do, especially for maintaining sight distance, is do not provide uh, intersections just after the vertical or the horizontal curves. So in this example, basically the intersection is hidden because a vertical curve is going like this. Okay, and in this example, on the left hand side, you can see if I'm coming from this side, the intersection is hidden from me because of this horizontal curve. Okay, so these types of situations must be avoided. Then when you are designing the intersection, what are the things you are looking to design? What are the elements you have to design? First of all, design the alignment of the road. Okay, how the two roads should be intersecting with each other. uh, then provide a suitable channeling system for the vehicles, for traffic. Channel means basically path. Okay, path or a way. Okay, so you have to provide a proper path or a proper channel for the vehicles to move. Okay, if somebody wants to take a right turn, he should know his place, where he should be, when he should change the direction, when he should change the lane. All these things should be marked for him or clear for him. And you have to make sure that you are providing enough width and enough radius for vehicles who are turning at speeds more than 15 miles per hour. Okay, this is high speed turns, these are high speed turns. So you have to make sure that you are providing enough radius for them. And whenever you are providing intersections and we are providing turnings, you have to make sure that you are having enough side distance as well. So we have talked about side distances for horizontal and vertical curves in the previous chapter. So you have to apply these concepts here to make sure of two things. You have to make sure the driver can see the other vehicles, and he can also see the control which you are using at the intersection, what type of control device you are using at the intersection, and that what does that device require. The driver should be able to see these things ahead of the intersection. Side distance not only for the vehicles but also for the control device which you have put at the intersection. For example, if it's a roundabout, the driver should be able to see the roundabout. If it's a signal, the driver should be able to see the signal, and so on. Then when you are designing the intersection, make sure the driver does not have to make more than one decision at a time. Okay, so for example, so do not let him get confused with uh, many things at the same time. So for example, if I'm driver coming from here, I'm making a right turn. So when I'm in this lane, so when I'm in this direction at this point, I only have to worry about getting in my lane. Nobody is intersecting me. Then I have a space here where I can wait. So I'm just worrying about finding a gap to enter. Okay, and then once I find the gap to enter, I can easily enter without worrying about if somebody is coming from the other side, because there is a gap. Okay, so at each time the driver is worrying about one thing at a time. Okay, similarly for this driver, when he is making the left turn, it's the same thing. At this point he just have to worry about getting into the lane. At this point he is just looking for the gap, and then he can turn safely. Okay, so this is what we mean here. Do not confuse the drivers with more than one decision at a time. Okay, which is, you know, just something which is not happening here. Okay, a driver who is coming from here, he does not have any specific lane for turning left or going straight. So everybody is in the same lane, so I have to uh, look for drivers who are turning left, who are turning right, and when I'm this at this point, if there is no signal, then there will be many drivers who will be crossing me. Okay, so this is the opposite of making one decision at a time. Try to avoid sharp reverse curves. Okay, so reverse curves are like this. We studied it in chapter 15. They are like this. Okay, so try to avoid providing any curves like this near the intersection. Okay, and try to avoid turning paths which are more than 90 degree. So something like this, you see this left turn. Okay, so this angle is more than 90 degree. So try to avoid turning curves like this. Merging and weaving should be as long as possible. What do we mean by merging? So you see this driver is coming from this direction, this driver is coming from this direction, and they are merging together. Okay, they are coming into the same lane. This is what we call as merging. Okay, and weaving means that you have a driver coming from here, and then you have another exit going out from here. Okay, so this area will become a weaving area. Okay, because some drivers will be coming like this, crossing into this exit, and some drivers will be going like this. Okay, so it's basically two drivers crossing in different directions. So as much as possible, try to avoid these weaving areas. So if a driver is crossing like this, another driver is trying to come into the lane like this, then they will make a crossing pattern like something like this. Okay, which we are trying to avoid. This is what we call as weaving. Anyways, so wherever merging, like I showed you, if you have to provide merging or if you have to provide weaving, okay, make sure you have enough space available to do that. Okay, how do we increase the space for merging? You may provide an extra lane for the people who are making the right turn from here, and then you have to close this lane somewhere here, right? So all this space is for basically my merging. Let me make it clear. So if I have an extra lane here from where I can make the right turn, okay, so this space is basically available for merging to me. I can merge, I don't have to merge from here at this point. I can merge from any of these points, which are, so I can merge from any point of this lane. So I've increased the area of merging. And similarly, instead of putting the exit here at this point, if I put the exit here, then I am providing more length of the road to do this crossing, right? Okay, so somebody wants to exit, he has more space available to make this exit, and somebody wants to cross him, again he has more space available to cross him. So this is known as this is how you increase the weaving area. Then the streams, traffic streams which are crossing each other, not weaving or merging. Okay, we are talking about now crossing. Crossing is what is happening here at this point. See, vehicles are crossing each other. Somebody taking a left turn from here, somebody taking a right left turn from here, somebody going straight. Okay, so this is what we call as crossing. So make sure these crossing angles are close to 90, as close to 90 as possible. Okay, so somebody, so you see in this case for this intersection, crossing is not at 90 degree because this angle is not 90 degree, right? So if somebody is going straight like this and somebody is going straight in this direction, they cannot cross at 90 degree, right? Because the roads are not at 90 degree. Try to make sure the roads are crossing at 90 degree. Okay, something like this, something which is happening here. The roads are almost at 90 degrees to each other. And for merging sections, wherever the drivers have to merge from different directions, make sure they have enough side distance. So this driver, when he's trying to merge with this driver, okay, so both drivers can see each other with some distance ahead. Okay, so I should not suddenly come here and see a driver coming from this direction. Okay, I should be able to see this driver when I'm maybe leaving from here. And similarly for the driver who is making the right turn from here, okay, I should not suddenly know that somebody is coming from this direction. Okay, so maybe I should be able to see the driver making a left turn, this one, when I am at this point. Okay, so you should give enough side distance to drivers who will eventually merge with each other. Should try to provide refuge areas for vehicles so that they do not interfere with other movements. So you see, this one is a refuge area. This particular area is a refuge area. So the left turning vehicles will be in this area, and when they are in this area, they are not interfering with the people who are going straight. Okay, so and same thing with the people. If somebody is in this area for making the right turn, he will not interfere with the people who are making the left turn or going straight from this direction. Okay, so these are known as refuge areas for turning vehicles, where they can wait, and while they are waiting, they are not stopping anyone else. Try to avoid or try to prohibit the block turns wherever it is possible. Okay, or try to block the prohibited turns wherever it is possible. So for example, you can see here, when you are in this area, you should be only able to go left because this is for left turning. So to go straight from here is prohibited. Okay, and how did I make sure of that? If you go straight, what will happen? You will bump into this island. Okay, so your way straight is blocked. Even if you try, you cannot go straight. So this is what we mean by blocking the prohibited turn. Same thing for this right turning as well. Okay, when I'm in this space, it is prohibited for me to go straight now. I have to take a right turn. So they have provided this island to me. Okay, so there's a traffic island here. So basically this traffic island is prohibiting me to go straight while I'm here. Okay, then the last point is, when you are designing the intersection, make sure that you have already taken the decision where you are going to put the control devices. Okay, control devices including lane marking, traffic islands, median, signals, roundabouts. Design them while you are designing the intersection itself. Okay, do not leave them for later, because later you may not find a sufficient place to put these devices. Okay, so design everything in tandem. Okay, this is an example where a three-leg intersection is given, and you can see it's a Y intersection. Okay, you have two roads crossing each other. This one is road 150 and this one is road 30. Both roads have less volume, so you cannot provide signals here, because signals do not work in low volume roads. Now in relation to these two roads, there is more traffic coming from this one, as compared to the other road. Although traffic on both roads is lower, is very low, but in comparison to each other, route 150 has more traffic. So this one has more traffic, and it has higher speed as well. Okay, so they have put a stop sign for the drivers who are coming from this road. So they have to stop here before they merge onto this road. Okay, so there's a stop sign for the road which has less traffic. But the problem is people are violating this stop sign. Drivers who are coming from route 30 are violating this stop sign because and they are having a problem in looking at the vehicles who are coming from this side. Okay, so they don't feel that they have to stop here. Okay, and the second thing is that they may want to stop if they have seen the vehicle coming out from here, from route 150, but they cannot see the vehicles who are coming from here as well. So they don't want to stop, and they don't see the reason for stopping as well. So what can we do with this intersection to make sure that these things do not happen? So because of not stopping and because of not having enough sight distance, they are having accidents at this location. So what can they do to avoid these accidents? So first of all, why we have a problem of sight distance here? It is because of the angle of intersection of these two routes. You can see the angle of intersection is very very short, very low. We said ideally it should be around 90 degrees. When the two roads are crossing, the angle between them should be around 90 degrees. So it is not at all equal to 90 degree. It is not even close to 90 degree. So because of this angle, when you are at this point, you cannot see what is happening from this side. Okay, so this is the reason of not having enough sight distance. And why they do not follow the stop sign? You can see for them they are going in a straight line. These drivers who are coming from route 30, they are going in a straight line. Okay, so naturally when you are going straight, you will not follow the straight the stop sign or any reduction in speed. Okay, so this is the reason that why they do not feel that they have to stop at this sign, because they feel they are going straight. Now how we can change the alignment of these roads to make sure that they have enough sight distance, that they feel the need to stop? You can change the alignment of the road to make it closer to the 90 degree, something like this. You see now, so roads are now crossing at 90 degree. Okay, so obviously at this angle it is easier to look at the drivers coming from this side, and since whenever you are trying to merge on this road, you are making a turning, so before you make the turn, it is a natural tendency to stop, okay, or just to slow down. So by changing the alignment of the road, you can take care of this. Then we have another example. You can see there is a staggered unsignalized intersection. Why staggered? Because this road is coming from here, and the other leg of this road is not directly in front, it is somewhere in this direction, upward, okay, towards north. So that's why it has made this road as this intersection as staggered, because there are two legs of the same road, but they are not crossing at the same point. So what is happening at this road? Drivers are coming like this and they are going in this direction. If they have to go straight, if they have to continue on this avenue, they have to go something like this, and then there is traffic coming from this direction. Okay, so while they are trying to cross, they are basically crossing this traffic. So it's basically, this area is what we called earlier as a weaving area. This one is a weaving area. You have an entry here, then you have an exit here. So driver is basically looking to cross the traffic. Okay, so there for this highway, there for this intersection, they have collected traffic data, which you can see here, and they have collected accident data as well. So they have seen in 3 years 40 accidents, which is more than 12 accidents per year, which is a lot. and most of the accidents are happening because of turning. Okay, and the other category is rear end. Rear end means you have one vehicle and that vehicle has stopped, and the vehicle coming from behind it did not expect it to stop and it hit him. Okay, so this is rear end accident. So these rear end accidents are very high and the turning accidents are very high at this intersection. And if you look at the traffic volume, the traffic on this road is higher. Okay, this street has higher traffic as compared to this avenue. Now what should we do to avoid these accidents at this location? Now why the accidents are happening here? Because people are trying to cross, people are trying to make a weaving action. Okay, and the length for them, space for them is very short. Okay, they have to go from this point to this point in a very small length. Okay, and when they come out, and it's an unsignalized intersection, so people are coming out based on their own judgment. So sometimes they come out, okay, and these drivers realize they have to stop suddenly, so they try to brake and they have rear end accident from the vehicle coming from behind them. Okay, so the reason of having the main crashes here is basically the people who are trying to turn or making a weaving action in this location, in this area, and then people who have to stop for them on this road. So these are basically causing these problems. So what can we do to avoid this thing? By the way, this length is given here. So this length in which they are doing the weaving is only 160 feet. So 160 feet is very short. It's not even 100 meters. So if you can make the two legs of the avenues which are from different directions in the same alignment, then it could decrease the accidents for turning and rear end. So I'm talking about something like this. So you have the avenue here and you have the street here. So a street is already in a straight alignment, so no problem. The avenue leg which was somewhere here, okay, you shift it from here, close it from here, and try to open the avenue on this side. So people who are going straight will go straight. Okay, so you will take care of the turning accident, and since they are going straight, okay, so you will have more side distance for both people who are coming from different directions. Okay, and they can make their decision in advance, so there will be no coming out on the road suddenly. These drivers will have more chance to see who is coming, and since they will not be crossing, it will be a straight movement, so they will make their movement very quick. Okay, so they will disturb less drivers on this side and they may not have to stop suddenly while they are coming from here. Okay, now earlier we talked about channelization, providing a path for the vehicle so that they can move from one end to the other end. Okay, for on an intersection. So providing this path or providing the channeling is known as channelization. So channelization is defined as separation of traffic which are going in different movements into their own paths. Okay, so we are trying to separate the traffic movements which are going in different paths into different channels. Okay, so we provide some channel for them to go into different directions. So channelization can be achieved through traffic islands. Okay, so you can see these are traffic islands here, different types of traffic islands. All of them are providing channelization. They are basically separating traffic, right? So this one is basically separating the left yes, the left turning and the right turning. Okay, this one is separating this direction and this direction. Okay, so all of them are basically separating movements. And channelization can also be provided by pavement markings. You can see here. So on the pavement you see different markings, and they are lane markings again to make sure that you are in different lanes, and on the lanes or with the lanes we are providing these arrows, okay, to show the driver his path for this lane. So our aim is to have a safe and orderly means predictable, or going in a specific direction. Okay, so we want safe and orderly movement of vehicles and pedestrians. Okay, so these channels or channelization is not only for vehicles, it also helps the pedestrians as well. So as we said, traffic island is mainly provided for channelization. So how do we define a traffic island? It's an area between traffic lanes which regulates the movement for different vehicles. Regulate means it controls the movement of different vehicles. Okay, so like this one, okay, it's controlling the movement of vehicles who are turning right. Okay, so it's an space which you leave between the two lanes just to make sure that the movement from both directions are regulated, they are separated, and they are controlled. Okay, and they also serve as pedestrian refuge area. Okay, so somebody who wants to cross this road, a pedestrian wants to cross this road from here, so he can use this island for stopping refuge. So there are two functions of traffic islands: pedestrian refuge and regulating of movements in different lanes. So let us discuss the principles for channelization. When you are providing channelization, make sure that you are directing the vehicle paths in such a way that more than two points are not crossing at more than two paths are not crossing at any point along your way. For example, you see here in this diagram, so when I am at this point, okay, the two movements which can cross is straight and left. Okay, nobody else. When I am at this point, again I am going like this, and the only movement which can cross me is this one. So again only two movements crossing at this point. And again when I reach here, again it's only me and this guy. Okay, so you can see, so you have to mark a channel for them. You have to mark a channel for this guy, so he goes exactly along this path. So when a driver goes along this path, so he will meet different drivers at different points. Okay, he will not have a situation where 3 or 4 drivers are coming from different directions at the same point. Okay, so this is how we make sure the drivers who are following the channel are not crossing different drivers at the same point. Try to control the merging, diverging, and crossing angles of the vehicles. Okay, so make sure that wherever the vehicles are crossing each other, their angles are close to 90 degrees. Close to 90 degrees. Obviously you cannot provide 90 degrees at all points, but you can see at most of the locations here in this diagram, the crossing angles are close to 90 degrees. Okay, so this one obviously is not exactly 90, but it's very close to 90. Okay, similarly this one is one. Okay, so we are trying to avoid sharp turns, but again it is for drivers who are following the channel. Okay, if somebody goes like this and this, then obviously he is not following my channel. Okay, so drivers have to follow the path. You have to make sure that they are following the path. You have to provide them islands and markings, and then you can make sure that the angles at which they will cross other drivers are almost 90 degrees. Decrease the area of wander. Okay, what do we mean by area of wander? Wandering basically means to move without any direction, to move without going in a specific direction. Okay, so like I gave you the example, if a driver is going like this, he wants to, driver coming from here, he wants to make a left turn, and instead of going like this, he is going like this. So this is known as wandering. Okay, this particular path, the second one is wandered path. Okay, and this happens when you leave too much area in the intersection. You can see this intersection which I am showing in the figure is very wide, so you have so much space available to you. You will see many times this thing happens on intersections when you are crossing, when you are making left turn. You will see some drivers, especially the new drivers, they do not have the sense of going in a circular path. So some of them go like this, some of them are going like this, trying to make a straight line, okay, and so on, because they have space to do that. So wherever there's you feel there's too much space available on the intersection for wandering of the drivers, you can control it by providing some markings, by providing some traffic islands. Okay, so if you are going to towards Salmania from from Sheikh Salman Highway, under the bridge you will see there are traffic islands even in the middle of the intersection. Okay, so these traffic islands are provided so that drivers do not wander. Okay, so if I provide a marking like this on the intersection, okay, and with the marking there the traffic island as well. Okay, so now the driver has to follow this path, this circular path. Okay, so try to reduce a wandering area by providing channelization, even if you have to do it in the intersection itself. Then some other principles for channelization: the path should be clearly indicated, clearly marked. So you can see, these arrows are given here. Okay, the arrows are given here as well. So these arrows are basically marking the path. So if I go there, I will be going straight. If I go here, I will be taking a left turn. Okay, and you can see the direction, the shape of the traffic island as well. It is showing you that you have to take a right turn from here and so on. Give priority to dominant movements, provide them more space, provide them more lanes. Dominant movements are those which have more vehicles. Okay, so you can see here I have only one lane for right turning because maybe the movement is less. Here you see there are two lanes for left turning, maybe because there are more people who are turning left. uh, Provide refuge areas for pedestrians. As I said, you can provide traffic islands, and these islands can serve as refuge areas. Is provide storage lanes so that the turning vehicles can wait away from the path of the other vehicles. So you can see storage lanes here. These are two storage lanes for left turning. This is a storage lane for right turning. Okay, so the purpose providing storage lane is the people who are taking left turn or right turn, when they are waiting, they should not interfere with other vehicles who are going straight. Provide a space for traffic control devices on the intersection. Okay, so in the middle of the intersection, if you have to provide a roundabout is a easier example to understand. So if you are providing a roundabout here, then there should be enough space to provide a roundabout, right? And the people should be able to see the traffic device from sufficient distance. So they should have enough sight distance to see the device as well. Control prohibited turns, we talked about it earlier. uh, if possible, if you can provide it, or if you are providing a signal, then you have an extra advantage of or an extra tool for providing channelization, because a signal can separate movements in different timings, right? All movements do not have to happen at the same time. So a signal is an extra tool for channelization. And restrict the speed of the vehicles. Okay, so in Bahrain you will see these yellow lines are used when you are reaching the intersection. They use these yellow lines like this. Sorry for the color, let me make it yellow just to make it real. Okay, so in Bahrain you would see yellow lines across the road when you are reaching the intersection. So when you are on these yellow lines, your vehicle slightly vibrates. Okay, they provide a little bit of hump. So this is for controlling the speed. On some intersections you would see the area near the intersection is made up of bricks, okay, not of asphalt. So again, this is to warn you that you are coming close to the intersection and reduce your speed. Then traffic islands can be made in different ways. You can have curved traffic islands like this. So this one is a curved traffic island, so it's an actual structure made up of blocks serving as a traffic island. It can be made up in terms of pavement marking as well, like this one. So it's a traffic island, but it is only marked. There are no blocks, there is no structure, and there are islands which are formed by the pavement edge. In our case, the yellow line is the pavement edge, right? But in this figure, you can see they are using a white line. Okay, so wherever you have the white line or the yellow line, in our case, the yellow line is the indication of the edge of the pavement. Okay, now you should not go beyond it. Okay, similarly, if you have some yellow line or white line between two directions, again it means it's a separation, right? It's a separation between the two lanes. So it can be, but these lines which we use, white lines, are basically showing you that it is still the part of the road, but yellow line in our case means that it is the end of the road. Okay, so a yellow line can serve as a pavement edge, and then it is providing you separation from other sides as well. So you may have another lane coming from here like this, but since there's a yellow line or white line here, you cannot merge with this lane. Okay, so this yellow line, let me paint it yellow. Okay, so this yellow line is basically providing you separation or acting as a traffic island. Now traffic island can be for channelization, like we have discussed. Okay, so you can see they are providing channels here. Okay, for right turning. Okay, this one. They can be for dividing traffic, divisional channel traffic island. So like this one. So this is a divisional traffic island, right? It is dividing the traffic from different directions. This one, all of them are divisional. They are dividing traffic from different directions. And all of them or some of them can be refuge traffic islands as well. Okay, because they can provide refuge to the pedestrians as well. So all of them can serve as refuge traffic islands as well. Okay. Then we said we will try to decrease the number of conflicting points you have between traffic when you are providing channelization, when you are designing intersection. Try to make sure that number of conflicting points are reduced. So first of all, you must know how many conflicting points you have and what type of conflicting points you have. So conflict points is a point where vehicles from two streams are meeting each other. Okay, that is a conflict point. So you can see all the points marked in this figure are basically conflict points. Okay, so you can see at this point you have person taking a right turn from here, and this person taking a left turn from here, and they are meeting. Okay, so this becomes a conflict point. At this point there's a person who wants to go straight, and there's another one who wants to take a right turn. Okay, again they are meeting at this point, so this becomes a conflict point. Conflict points can be of three types. You can have merging conflict points, you can have diverging conflict points, and you can have crossing conflict points. Now what are these? A merging conflict point is this one. This one is merging. Why? Because two drivers are coming from different directions and they are merging at this point. Okay, then we have diverging. That means two drivers are coming from the same direction, but they are going in different movements. So this one is a diverging conflict point. Okay, so you have two drivers coming from here, and some of them will take a right turn and some of them will go straight. Okay, and some of them may take a left turn as well. So this becomes a diverging conflict point. Drivers coming from same direction and going into different movements. And then we have crossing, in which the drivers are coming from different directions and they are going into different movement, but they are meeting at a point, at some point. Okay, so this point is basically a a crossing conflict point. So you have people who are taking left turn from to here, and you have another guy taking left turn to here. So they are coming from different roads going in different directions, but they are meeting at a point. So this point becomes a crossing conflict point. So when you are designing the intersection, first of all you make a sketch of the intersection and you identify how many conflict points you have, and then you try to do some channelization so that each of these conflict points is removed. Okay, so for example you provide a traffic island here, okay, so that this conflict point will be removed, okay, or you provide a signal here so that this conflict point will be removed, and so on. Now let us look at an example. This is an intersection in Bahrain, and the traffic data and the accident data was collected for this intersection, okay, for 3 years. Let me show you the data. So this intersection is between Al Fateh and Sheikh Zayed Highway, and it started working in 1979. It's a T intersection, and in from 2006 to 2008, they observed 20 accidents at this intersection, which is a lot from standards of Bahrain. Anything more than 6 accidents, any location more than 6 accidents per year is considered high accident location, black spot. So they had 20 accidents, which is more than 6 accidents per year, and from them 5% were fatal and 40% were serious injury accidents. Okay, so there's more than 40% chance of having serious injuries. How many people were involved? There were 42 drivers, 12 passengers, and 4 pedestrians involved in these accidents. So in total, 42 plus 12 is 54 plus 4 is 56. So there are 56 people involved in these accidents, which is a lot. So they did some studies related to these accidents, and they found the following facts. Most of the accidents happen because of drunken driving, crossing the red light, misjudging clearance, changing the lanes carelessly, and there were 5 accidents for which they could not find the reason, or they could not specify the reason. This location of the intersection is in a well-known area which has hotels and entertainment centers on one side, and it has a residential area on the other side. Okay. So what can we do at this intersection to make sure that we don't have these accidents? Now for drunken driving, obviously we cannot do anything at the intersection. You have to do something with the drivers. We will not talk about that. Crossing red light. Now why do you cross the red light? The main or the the main point because of which you may cross a red light can be the sight distance. Okay, so maybe you do not have enough sight distance on the site to uh, to see. Okay, so you can see the signal, which is shown here. It is also shown in this picture as well. It is at a very low height, so maybe because of the height of the signal you don't have much sight distance. So if you increase the height of the signal, it may give more sight distance to drivers, and they may not be looking to cross the red light. You can put cameras as well. It is very effective in our case. Putting cameras, it stops the drivers from crossing the red light. They become more cautious. Okay. Then other problem is misjudging the clearance. So this is for example, there was a car in front of you and you were coming from behind, and that car suddenly stopped and you could not stop yourself and you hit the other vehicle. This is what they mean by misjudging clearance. So it's a rear end accident. Now why rear end accidents would happen at the intersections? Again, one reason can be because the driver did not see the signal, and when he saw it was red, so he tried to stop suddenly, and this caused an accident. Secondly, there was we said there is entertainment area and hotels on one side and residential area on the other side. So it means what? Too many pedestrians crossing. Okay, currently if you see in this picture, there is nothing for pedestrian crossing provided here, no crosswalk and so on. Okay, so you can provide pedestrian crosswalk. The islands which are provided at the intersection, they do not have any cuts. Okay, so pedestrians have to go up and down. Okay. uh, Secondly, check the signal timing. maybe the pedestrian is crossing when the signal is red, but it does not remain red for enough time. So check the signal timing according to pedestrian requirements. The signal should remain red to the point when the drivers have actually crossed. And then the main reason can be the side distance of the signal and the pedestrian crossing. So for pedestrian crossing you do all these things, and for signal side distance you increase the height of the signal, okay, so that drivers do not stop suddenly because of any of these things. Then changing lanes carelessly. Okay, now what does it mean? It basically means drivers are wandering. Okay, when they are making a right turn or the left turn, they are basically changing their lanes, like, however they want. So somebody is going in this direction, okay, so he goes like this maybe. Okay, so you have to reduce the area of wandering for these drivers. So maybe at the intersection, you provide some markings. Okay, so provide some markings, maybe provide some so if this is your intersection. Okay, so let's say you provide some marking for people who are taking a left turn, so that they will go along this line when they are taking the left turn. Maybe provide an island here to make sure the people who are taking the left turn do not go in this side, and so on. Okay, so reduce the area of wandering, provide lane markings for directions. Okay, maybe on that road at that time there were no lane markings showing you which lane is for left turning, which lane is for straight. For example, there are 3 lanes here, and I don't know if I'm in the middle lane, can I go straight or can I take a left turn or not, or can I, if I'm going straight, should I be in the middle lane, or should I be only in the right hand side lane. Okay, so provide some arrow markings here, okay, and reduce the area of wandering on the intersection itself. So these things are supposed to decrease the accidents which are happening at this intersection. These are few measures, but you can think of others as well. uh, Now let us discuss the sight distance criteria at the intersections. Whenever you're designing the intersection, you have to provide enough sight distance. So we talked about sight distance to see the control device on the intersection. This is looking straight, right? When you are coming to the intersection, you want to see a control device at the intersection. You are looking at it in a straight line, so no problem. For straight sight distance, you already have the equations for that. But you have to look at the car who is coming from the other direction as well. So this driver at A have to know how far is the car at C is. Okay, so how do we ensure this side distance? For this side distance, you can see this is the line of sight of the driver, this dotted line. So from point A he will see point C if there is no obstruction for him on the side of the route. We talked about it in the previous chapter as well. For horizontal curves, that there should not be any obstruction on the side of the road if you are looking across the curve. So let us have an equation which can ensure enough side distance across the turning for you on the intersection. Now you see there are 2 roads here. Let me call this road as road A. So this one is road A and this one is road B. Okay, the distance from the vehicle to the obstruction on the side of the road from road A is called as small a, and the distance from the obstruction to the vehicle on road B is called as small b. Okay, the distance from which you can see vehicle coming from road B, the distance from the intersection, at to the point from where you can see the vehicle coming from road A is what we call as dA. So dA is the distance from the intersection to the point from which driver on road A can see the vehicle from road B, and distance from the intersection to the point on road B from where that driver can see the vehicle coming from road A is called as DB. Okay, so A and B is the distance to the obstruction, and D and DB is the distance to the intersection from the points where the drivers can see each other. So now you see this dotted line, or let me remove these things from here. Now you can see point A, point C, and point B, which is a intersection point. These points are making a right angle triangle. Okay, and point A, point E, and point D is also making a right angle triangle. So point A is the point of the driver, point E is the point where the obstruction is, and point D is the perpendicular point on the road. Okay, so AED is a right angle triangle, and ABC is a right angle triangle. Okay, for ABC, this distance, the perpendicular is DB, and this distance, the base is DA. So it's DA upon DB. The perpendicular upon base will be DB upon DA. And for triangle AED, the perpendicular is A, and the base is DA minus B. This total distance is DA, and from this distance from the vehicle on this side on road B to the obstruction is B. Okay, so the remaining distance is DA minus B. Okay, so B is the distance from this vehicle to the obstruction. Okay, so this total distance was DA, and then you subtract B from it. So for triangle AED or ADE, the perpendicular is A, and the base is DA minus B. Okay, now these two are similar triangles, so their ratios should be equal. So DB upon DA should be equal to A upon DA minus B. Now in this triangle, basically DA and DB are your distances to the intersection, which are required to see the other vehicle coming from the other side, and A and B is the distance to the obstruction. Okay, so we have combined the side distance to the intersection with the distance to the obstruction in this equation. Now how do I find DA and DB? DA and DB are basically my side distances, for which I already have the equations. Okay, so applying those equations, they have given me a table for DA and DB. So in the first table, the top one, you can see the values of DA or DB. Okay, whichever road you are considering. If you are considering road A, then this column will give you DA. If you are considering road B, then this column will give you DB, according to the speed, because side distance depends upon speed. And then we have another table which is for the adjustment factor. Because of the gradient of the road, we know side distance should change according to the gradient. Gradient has an effect on the side distance. So according to the gradient value and the design speed of the road, they have given me adjustment factors. So once you get the value of DA DB from the first table, then you will multiply with the adjustment factor from this table. Okay, so if the adjustment factor is 1, then this distance will be multiplied by 1. If the adjustment factor is 1.2, then this distance will be multiplied by 1.2. Okay, so take the distance from the first table, take the adjustment factor from the second table, and you multiply both of them. That will give you the final value of DA or DB. Now you can see, if when the gradient is in this range -3 to +3, the adjustment factor is 1. So that means no adjustment. Basically 1 means no adjustment, right? You multiply anything with 1, you get the same thing. So if the gradient is in this range, then you can proceed without any adjustments. Let us look at this example. We have a tall building 45 feet located 45 feet from the center line of a local road. So they are calling it as road B. So this distance becomes small b. Okay, so small b is given 45 feet, and it is located from 65 feet at 65 feet from the other road. So if 45 feet is distance b, the distance from obstruction to road b, then the other one 65 becomes the distance from obstruction to road a, so it becomes a. So you have to basically we take the road which has the lower speed as b and the road which has the higher speed as a, but in this case they have already given me which one is a, which one is b. Let's say the maximum speed on this road a, intersecting road, they are calling it the intersecting road. So on this road the speed is 35 miles per hour. What should be the speed limit on the other road? Okay, to make sure they have enough side distance as well, both the drivers have enough side distance as well. Okay, so how much should be the speed on the local road, on road b basically, and they have given the gradients are 2% on both the roads. Okay, so let us see how we can proceed with that. So I already have the speed limit on one of the roads, so using this speed limit I will find out how much is the side distance or required distance on this road. Okay, how much is the required side distance on this road? So I put the 35 miles per hour speed here, and I get the side distance to be 165 feet. Okay, so on road A I need 165 feet. Then do I need an adjustment for this road? No, because the gradients were given as 2%, so it's in this range, so no adjustment is required. Then I have uh, the equation which is for the similar triangle, and from that equation I get this one. So basically I have put dB on one side, how much is the distance required on the other road, and everything on the other side. So this is coming from the equation of the similar triangles which I had for the intersection. And from this, in this equation I know A, which was given in the question, 65 feet. I know B, again given the question, 45 feet. These are distances to obstruction from the intersecting roads. And then I just found the value of dA from the table, 165 feet, this one. So I put these values in the equation and I get the distance on the other side to be 89.37 feet. So dB should be 89.37 feet. So if the required distance on local load is 89.37 feet, then how much should be the speed? That was the question, right? So 89.37 is somewhere here, right? 89.37, basically almost 90. So at 90 miles per hour the speed should be, sorry, at 90 feet the speed should be 20 miles per hour on the minor road. So this is how we do it. So we have another example. A developer, meaning owner of a plot, has requested permission to build a large store adjacent to an intersection of two roads. One of them is a major road, 4-lane major road. The other one is a 2-lane minor road. Okay, so major road is normally taken as A. Okay, so and the minor road is normally taken as B. So this one will become an A road, and this one will become the B road. Okay, the speed limits for both the roads are given. Obviously 50 is for major road, 35 is for minor road, and the building is to be located 65 feet from the minor road. Okay, so from one side the distance is fixed, from minor road the distance is fixed, so we will call it distance B, right? This is B. So the speed limit for both the roads are given and distance B is given. We have to find out what should be the distance from the major road of the building. Okay, how much far should it be from the major road so that you have adequate side distance for the turning drivers. Okay, so let us proceed with that. So first of all, B is given. Okay, first thing I will try to find out is how much should be the values of dA and dB because I have the speeds. Okay, so for 35 miles per hour, which was for the minor road, the distance dB is 165 feet. So dB is 165 feet. And for 50 miles per hour, which was the speed on the major road, the distance is 245 feet. Okay, so 245 feet dA. And do I need an adjustment? No, because the gradient was not given, so I will consider it to be within this range. Okay. Then we have the ratio here, similar triangle. Okay, so you apply the ratio, you have dA, you have dB, and B is also given 65 feet from the minor road building distance. So you put these values in the equation and you get 121.22 feet. So that means the building should be located 122 feet away from the major road. Okay, so hopefully that's clear now.